The first sound was breathing that didn't belong to me. I was 8 years old, standing on the cold tiles of our kitchen, staring at the dark hallway while the clock on the wall ticked far too loudly. My parents had been gone for less than 10 minutes. I knew that because I was still counting, still repeating my mother's rules in my head. Don't open the door, don't answer the phone, don't go upstairs. The breathing came again, slow and wet, as if someone were learning how to use lungs for the very first time. It came from inside the house. That was when I understood something a child should never understand. The house knew I was alone. Our home sat at the edge of a quiet English estate, one of those rows built in the late 70s where every house looked friendly from the outside and identical enough to make secrets easy to hide. The neighbors waved, the hedges were trimmed, and nothing truly bad was supposed to happen there. My parents trusted the place. That's why they felt safe leaving me alone on a Saturday evening while they drove to my aunt's birthday dinner. They promised to be back before 10. They promised I'd be fine. I promised I wouldn't be scared. At first, everything was normal. I watched cartoons in the living room, volume turned low like Mum liked it, and ate crisps straight from the bag. The house made its usual noises, the hum of the fridge, the distant knock of pipes, the occasional creak as it settled. But after a while, the silence between those sounds grew heavier, thicker, as if the air itself was listening. That was when I heard the breathing for the first time. I told myself it was the boiler. I told myself it was my imagination, fueled by too many scary stories at school. Still, I turned off the television. The screen went black, reflecting my small, pale face and the dark shape of the hallway behind me. In the reflection, I thought I saw movement. I spun around. Nothing. Just the long corridor leading to the stairs, each step disappearing into shadow. I tried to be brave. I tried to be sensible. I went into the kitchen to get a drink, because that's what a brave, sensible child would do. That's where the breathing found me again, closer this time, as if it were right behind the walls. I froze, cup halfway to my mouth, listening. The sound wasn't mechanical. It had pauses, hesitation. It sounded tired. "Hello," I whispered, hating the way my voice shook. The breathing stopped. For a moment, I felt relief. Then the relief twisted into something worse. Whatever it was had heard me. I ran back into the living room and locked the door. Even though it was only a flimsy internal lock my dad had installed just in case. I sat on the sofa, knees to my chest, staring at the door handle. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes, maybe an hour. Time stretched in strange ways when you were alone and afraid. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Children did that. Houses made noises. That was when the footsteps started upstairs. They were slow, deliberate, pacing from one end of the landing to the other. Each step made the old floorboards complain. I'd grown up with it, but this was different. This wasn't the casual walk of my parents getting ready for bed. This was measured like someone counting steps. Back and forth, back and forth. Then, very clearly, something heavy was dragged across the floor. I screamed. I didn't mean to, but the sound tore out of me and echoed around the room. The footsteps stopped immediately. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It pressed in on my ears until I thought they might bleed. I grabbed the house phone with shaking hands and dialed my mom's number. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. That was when the whisper started. It came from the other side of the living room door, soft enough that I wondered if I was imagining it again. I leaned forward, despite every instinct screaming at me not to. The whisper wasn't words at first, just breath, shaped into something almost like speech. Then it formed my name, not the full version. The nickname only my family used. I scrambled backwards, dropping the phone. The whisper continued calm and patient, as if it knew I couldn't go anywhere. It told me it was cold. It told me it had been waiting. It told me the house was very lonely without people inside it. The handle on the door began to turn. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. The sound of glass breaking as I smashed the living room window with a lamp. The cold air rushing in, neighbors shouting, someone pulling me into their arms. The police searching the house and finding nothing. No signs of forced entry. No one upstairs. No explanation for the whisper or the breathing or the footsteps. My parents sold the house a month later. They told everyone it was because of my overactive imagination. I learned to tell the same story. Children lie, adults said. Children exaggerate, but I never forgot the way the whisper sounded relieved when it said my name, like it had finally been acknowledged. Years passed. I grew up. I convinced myself that fear had warped my memory. That night became a family joke, something to tease me about at Christmas. Until last winter, when my mom rang me late, her voice thin and shaken. The new owners of the house had called her. Their son had been left alone for the first time. He'd locked himself in the living room. He'd broken a window to get out. When his parents asked why, he'd said the house had started breathing when it realized he was on his own. I moved on with my life, but the idea never truly left me. And as I spoke to friends as the years rolled on, I realized my story wasn't unique. Almost everyone I knew had a childhood memory of being alone in a house and feeling watched, hearing something, sensing something. As if when adults left, the rules of reality loosened. As if houses remembered the children who stayed behind. One story came from a friend named Lewis, who grew up in a small terraced house in Manchester. His parents both worked late shifts, and from the age of 9, he'd spend hours alone after school. He told me that at first, the house felt like a friend. It kept him company. It creaked inside and popped in familiar ways. But one afternoon, when rain lashed against the windows and the sky darkened too quickly, the house changed. Lewis was in his bedroom when he heard the front door open. He assumed it was his mom home early. He shouted hello. No answer. He went to the top of the stairs and called again. That's when he saw muddy footprints appearing on the hallway carpet, one by one, as if an invisible person were walking inside. They stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Something began to climb. Lewis hid in his wardrobe, holding his breath as the steps came closer. He said he could hear the thing smiling, not laughing, smiling. When his parents finally came home, the footprints were gone, but the carpet was wet, as if someone had just walked in from the rain. They blamed a leak. Lewis slept with the light on for years. Another story belonged to my cousin's wife, Sarah, who spent a summer alone in her childhood home while her parents worked abroad. She was 12, old enough to feel independent, young enough to still fear the dark. Every night at exactly 11, the TV in the empty spare room would turn on by itself. Static would hiss through the house. When she went to turn it off, the screen would show grainy footage of the hallway, as if filmed from the ceiling. She could see herself standing there, watching the screen. One night, the footage showed someone standing behind her, too tall, its head bent at an impossible angle. She stopped going near that room after that. Years later, when the house was renovated, builders found old wiring connected to nothing, leading nowhere, like veins cut and left behind. No camera was ever found. The last story that truly unsettled me came from a man I met through work. He didn't like to talk about his childhood, but one late night, after too many drinks, he told me about the summer he spent alone while his parents separated. He said the house taught him how to behave. When he broke a rule, something would go wrong. A cupboard would slam on his fingers. A stair would give way. Once, when he tried to leave the house without permission, every door locked at once. He learned to ask out loud before moving from room to room. He learned to say, thank you. He learned to apologize to empty spaces. He moved out at 16. The house was demolished a year later after a gas leak. No one was hurt. But he said he sometimes woke up at night feeling walls around him, breathing slowly, patiently, as if waiting for him to be alone again. All these stories share the same shape. A child, a house, absence. It makes you wonder whether loneliness is more than a feeling. Whether it's something that can soak into walls, into floors, into the quiet spaces where adults don't look. Children notice things adults dismiss. They listen, they imagine, or maybe they remember. Sometimes late at night, I sit in my own home, lights off, listening to the sounds it makes. The soft ticks and sighs. The way it settles around me. I tell myself it's just a building. Just wood and brick and wires. But every now and then, when the house goes too quiet, I swear I can hear breathing that isn't mine, slow and careful, as if something is making sure I'm not alone. And when I leave a room, I make sure to say goodbye.